you've got the host.
It's working. It's recording.
Okay, good. Okay, see what the group thinks about this. We've had a lot of discussions, a lot of chatter in the background about what these grape systems consist of. And there's the single grape, and then potential for some people to have two grapes, and then there's a grape 1 versus grape 2. And if the group would allow me, I'd like to share a screen and just throw a rather couple of crude pictures up on the wall, but also to we need to look at our Raspberry Pi inventory, because that's a key element to all these projects, and then maybe come up with an action item list as to who's going to do what. So look out, is all I got to say. So let's see here.
Well, that and I think we need to think carefully about the supply chain. Really serious problems with Raspberry Pis. And I
Tell
don't
me
know
about it.
I know there's no easy solution.
Actually, I have one, but we'll get into that.
Okay,
I
let
think
me
there are
find
plenty of pies, you just have to pay for them.
Oh yeah, they've gotten quite expensive compared to earlier.
Not if you buy them from the right source, like the raspberrypi.org organization.
That's good.
Which Case can do, and I have done.
That's very good.
So
Maybe a group buy for everyone would be a good deal.
yep, done it already, actually.
Yeah, there's a couple of those. That's slide number 3. So let's not get
Okay.
ahead of
Yeah.
ourselves. So if I can, the talk in the last couple of weeks is we've got some people that have existing Grape 1.1s. We'd like to supplement with those guys are running the FL Digi image and creating data in that format. We want to maintain those stations. We want to maintain that data stream potentially for the next couple of years, because there's some interesting solar flare research going on with that FL Digi data. The other thing I understand is we've got a new radio image that Bill Engelke's worked on, and some others may be fiddling with too. That is the format we want to use going forward. That's our preferred format. So knowing those two things, it would be ideal if in the roughly 6 locations in the CEDAR grant around the US that are positioned properly to send and receive, or basically receive signals across the eclipse paths, if most or all the stations could have 2 data collection systems running. Does that sound like an accurate statement so far?
So far, so good.
Okay. So this very simple kind of crude diagram anyhow, just to make sure we know we've got all the parts covered. Obviously, we need an antenna, a single Grape receiver with a GPS and antenna. What I learned in the last day is we can actually split the audio output through a Y cable. I would assume we would go into 2 audio interfaces through USB. And
If both the USB interfaces are the same, doing the Y cable will work because they both have a bias in there for an electric mic input. And if the bias is the same, they'll just short together. The output impedance of the audio stage on the Grape 1 is low enough to drive the roughly 2K input impedance of each of the audio interfaces. So 1K input impedance is not a problem to drive it. And it's AC coupled, so it'll self-center. And if both of the audio USB devices are the same, it'll go to the same voltage and it should work just fine.
I wouldn't worry about the voltage either. They've got resistors in the way, and if they fight a little bit, I don't think it's an issue.
Well, if they're the same interface, it's the same resistor divider bias network, which is usually a 2.2K pull-up
Right.
to 3.3. And those in parallel will give you 1.1K, and the Grape can drive 1.1K without any trouble.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
You're talking about the exact same sound card, right? For everything.
Yes, that same sound card.
So you have to, so is there a supply chain problem with that sound card?
I got those on Amazon. They're like $7 a piece.
Yeah, same here in the last month.
Yeah, I got the second one just a couple of weeks ago. Also
Yeah,
got another
I don't
Raspberry
think
Pi.
there's a supply problem with the audio cards. And that one I found has a noise floor that's 20 dB lower than any of the other ones I've tried, which is why I went with that one.
Yeah, it is that, and that's probably overkill. I mean, the audio dynamic range just doesn't need to be that high.
Well, the thing that you get from a lower noise floor is you're able to pull out the frequency on lower level signals. You're not
Yeah.
fighting the Gaussian noise of the background. So
Yeah,
it makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
John, what's the manufacturer of that one? Is that Sabrent?
Yes. It's a little,
Have you tried other versions from Sabrent?
not other versions, but I've tried other similar, like 3 different other ones that were different
Yeah,
manufacturers.
I'm just wondering because Sabrent has various
Yeah,
configurations that may use the same chip.
They may, but I have found even among manufacturers, within the manufacturers, sometimes they do different topologies and it affects the noise floor. This
Right.
one popped out because it was just so much quieter. I just like, wow.
Yeah, and it is readily available.
Yeah.
And what's the brand name of that?
Sabrent, Sabrent.
Correct.
And the model?
Yeah, that's the one that's in the parts list that you can find on the Grape 1 page with the builder's instructions and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can try another
Okay, so
sound
if
card,
we've
but
got
your
the two
mileage may
identical,
vary.
right, so I'm gonna recommend we all do the same. Okay, so we've got 2 identical sound cards, each has a USB port into 2 Raspberry Pis. So this is, and obviously each Pi has got a fan, each Pi will need a power supply. And I believe we've said in the past, we need wired Ethernet connections out to the cloud, is that correct?
It works much better. Yeah. Especially for the GNU radio, you're going to definitely want wired for that. The Raspberry
Okay.
Pi, I've been getting away with wireless on mine with their 3Bs.
Yeah, my wireless does like 400 megabits per second. So today's wireless is pretty damn fast.
Well, people's Wi-Fi installations vary dramatically. I mean,
Yes, they do.
not everybody has a Google Home Hub mesh network like I do. Some people have the cheapest thing they can get at the local toy store.
The thing to do is to try a speed test and see what you get.
Yep, exactly.
Of course, you know, for those of us on cable, we only get at best 11 megabits per second upload, unless you pay big bucks.
Actually, I've got DSL and I've got 102 megabit download and a 25 megabit upload.
And my cable in Havre de Grace, Maryland is 100 up and a gig down.
Yeah, and that's not, I'm not cable, I'm DSL over a phone
Yeah,
line.
that's fiber. That's not cable. Well,
Yeah.
at least it's not my cable. I'm on Comcast and they're
Well, there's
really
a problem.
throttling upload. Right?
Yeah.
I think these connections vary wildly.
Exactly. That's the point. But
Yeah.
you don't need all that bandwidth.
No.
You really don't. These are
Well, you do for this.
For GNU radio, you will.
Oh,
What
I'm
are the what are the question marks that you're going to there on the wired Ethernet?
Well, that's
where the
I'm
files
glad you're here
will
too,
go.
Dave, because I know that the GNU radio stuff, that's what Bill's got his database set up for at the University of Alabama. I know we're currently using WWV's infrastructure to FTP stuff for the FL Digi stuff. Is that going to continue or is that potentially going to change?
Well, that's my question. How long do you need it to go? It's always been quoted as temporary.
Right.
We're going to use it. It's a halfway between the data and the repository.
That's like our temporary bridge that lasted 26 years until it got
I can answer this. We should keep it going
knocked down again.
until we have the solution, a proven solution that we are properly converting the digital RF to the format that Christina is happy with. So what we need to do is before we sunset the WWV server, we should make sure that Bill Engelke's server is demonstrably collecting data reliably from a large number of systems, and we have software in place that Christina is like, if I run this software, it will properly convert the digital RF to the FL Digi style format so that she's happy scientifically.
Now, initially, the Grape 2 is going to generate the same data in the same format as the Grape 1 for the 3 radios. And it's going to be uploading to the WWV ARC server.
In addition to doing the in addition to doing the digital RF.
Right.
Yes.
But as
And-
you told me
So-
initially, I don't have to worry about digital RF right away. We're going to get this thing working and then we're going to have Kung generate that stuff from my files.
Yes.
My only
Kung-
question is there going to be a change in the expectation of the repository that we've got right now?
In terms
No.
of size,
Well, are files going to be bigger? Are you going to
No.
upload more data?
they're
No.
identically the same size files.
Yes.
You know, it's working fine. There's no reason to get rid of it. I'm just always asking because we've said it's temporary. So,
Right.
you know, it's, I think it's fine. As long as you're able to download the data that you want to in the way that we've been doing it. And, you know, the only time I ever hear about it is when something's broken.
Yeah, Christina's been using it extensively, so.
Okay, well, as
She
long as
still
everything's
is.
working, there's no reason for us to change it. I'm glad to have that update. Thank you.
Yeah, it's working very well. As far as I've heard, I haven't heard anything to the contrary.
Okay,
Some-
good
some-
discussion. Good.
Now, this GNU Radio Raspberry Pi 4B, the 5-volt supply is going to be a wall wart that plugs directly into the 4B, unlike the previous, let's see, the 3, that was done that way as well. The Grape 2 has its own 5-volt supply for the Raspberry Pi 4, so we do not need that. But the
Yeah,
4B,
that's the next, the Grape 2 is the next page, John. Let me finish
okay,
this one.
well,
if
the
you could.
4B, whether we use it in here or on the Grape 2, has to have a fan and a case.
Right.
So you can get the cases and fans together for $14, which is what I found. In fact, I just ordered 10 of them for our project here. So,
Yeah, that's our fan and case image right there. That's the
okay,
winner.
got it. But the hard drive is going to be at least, I suspect, a 1 terabyte solid state drive. And you also forgot the USB controller that you have to buy for that. So it's a hard drive and USB controller.
Yeah, by the way, we've have experience with various USB to SATA cabling, and some are better than others.
Yeah, I got mine from, it was recommended by Bob. Oh, geez, I forgot his last name already. Anyway, he had recommended a hard drive and a SATA solution that I've actually already got the 50 that I need for Grape 2.
It's a StarTech.com.
StarTech. Thank you, Bill.
I'd also like to point out that there are metal cases available for the 4B that may avoid needing to use a fan.
But they're probably more than $14 with the power.
No, they're about the same. They're not
I
that
know.
expensive. I bought one and yeah, they're not that pricey.
Yeah,
The Flirk is $16, but
well, I've already got all the cases for the Grape 2s, so I'm all set.
Mhm.
The only thing I have not ordered yet for the Grape 2, I'll save for the next slide.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
So,
Gary, I noticed in here you've got a 5-volt DC going to the Grape. I think at least my Grape 1.11 is got a regulator that drops from 12 volts to 5 volts on it. I don't know if
That's correct.
we still need to use that or not, but that one you would not power with 5 volts.
That's the thing I was going to ask. When I ordered the boards for the Grape 112, if for this next temporary solution, I can easily remove the regulator and put a little filter in there so it runs off 5 volts directly.
Oh, you might just get a low dropout regulator. then
Well, the
it
low
would
dropouts
possibly-
require 300 millivolts of IO, so the power supply would have to be at least 5.3, and most of these Raspberry Pis run at 5.1, 5.2. I mean, it'll work fine. It's going to saturate. You won't get the noise rejection, but it'll work.
Right.
I mean, for that matter, you could run the Grape at a power supply level, probably at 4 volts, and it'll work just fine.
Removing the filter, removing the regulator is a better option.
It is a better option, and I can lay the board out so the regulator, you don't have to jumper it. And it's, like I say, since I'm ordering the boards, it's like a 3-minute job to cut the Gerbers and have it ordered. So that's probably what I'm going to do.
That makes sense.
That way I won't have the New England Grape Bunch mad at me again.
You might make a note for us Grape 1.11 users that we either have to go in and strap that regulator out ourselves or use 12 volts.
Well, I had initially set them all up with 12.
Yeah.
Because the board I had on there, I don't remember anymore. So it's too long ago that I did that.
Jim, my assumption is anybody that's already running the 1.11 has figured out the power supply thing.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, one of the things we're trying to think about is what we'd have to supply to the next 20 users. So they would be 1.12. So your point is valid, but I think we're thinking more going forward than going backward.
Yeah, I understand, but as long as we say Grape.11 on that drawing, there should be some sort of a note to remind people.
One thing I wanted to bring up that may not be obvious for this October 2023 eclipse, it happens in the mid-afternoon, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which means the WWV5 propagation is non-existent. So you're probably going to want to be doing 10 or 15 for the receive.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand,
Unless maybe
you
in the
know,
middle of the eclipse.
if suddenly 5 megahertz becomes during the eclipse becomes viable, wouldn't you want to see that? You know,
What is the propagation method that brings WWV perpendicular to the eclipse path?
Well, it's going to vary depending on where the person is located. We're
That's true. That's true.
distributing-
That's true.
So-
But the most of the path from WWV on 5 megahertz to the solar eclipse path is in daylight.
Mhm.
I don't understand how that'll work.
Yeah, I don't either. That's why I was bringing it up. It needs to be thought through before we
That's why
select
we're
the
looking
frequency.
at it.
Yeah.
but during the eclipse, it's not fully daylight. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
if you don't get any information before, during, or after the eclipse on 5 megahertz, you haven't
Nope.
looked at anything.
Sure don't.
That's the issue I'm bringing up. It's something from Nathaniel. That's at his pay grade.
And that's not a decision I have to make just yet, right?
Right, correct.
Okay.
You can do that, depending how much data you want pre-eclipse, that's really when you have to make the decision, so.
Right. No,
And-
I think we should make these, I think we should make this decision by the time we ship these things out to people,
So they
because
can be set up.
I want them shipped out so they're already pre-configured.
Called turnkey.
Yes, it should be turnkey. So
Yep.
we will, I want to talk to Steve Serwin some more about this. I think all of you bring up valid points about this, but I think we can make that decision as we're doing the final configuration of them.
Because anything west of the eclipse path really isn't going to be affected in terms of reception of WWV. It's only under it and east.
Right.
Yep.
So
Okay, so we'll let the science community answer that. That's fine.
right.
For us engineers, still want to make sure I'm 100% clear on this, that the GNU radio image requires a hard drive, and I can take these question marks out of here.
Yep. They're generating a ton of data.
Okay, that's cool. So this diagram, I think, is fairly good shape.
Mhm.
Learned a lot. Okay, let me go to the Grape 2, look at the future a little bit. It looks a whole lot simpler.
If it's antenna, there's also a GPS antenna off the Grape 2.
Okay, I'll add that later.
Yeah, comes in. There is a USB connection to the Raspberry Pi. Yeah, that's a high-speed connection. Hard drive is going to be a 2 terabyte with a USB controller off the USB 3 port of the Raspberry Pi 4. The 5-volt power supply is a 5-volt 3 amp wall wart. No, I take that back. Get rid of the 5-volt power supply. That is powered by the Grape 2. The 40-pin ribbon cable goes between the Grape 2 and the Raspberry Pi 4B. So in addition to the USB cable is the 40-pin ribbon cable between the two. And that's where power comes from the Grape. The Grape 2 can create 5 volts at about 6 amps now. So it'll run the USB solid state drive at its peak rate currents, as well as the Grape 2, as well as the Raspberry Pi 4 on boot, which goes up to about 1.5 amps. So I can handle a 4 amp peak load without any troubles, but there is a 40-pin ribbon cable that's missing in the diagram, in addition to the USB cable. Yeah.
One of the people in the Tangerine group brought up the fact that he has worn out a number of solid state drives.
Yep.
And
that was
he's using an actual mechanical hard drive.
Yeah, he's probably using one of the Western Digital Blue drives, which is intended for video, which handles much higher bandwidth and much higher, not only data rates, but the write sequences are much more sustainable.
Yeah, that was Bill Engelke. He was saying he was using Western Digital Purple. So
Oh, you want purple because you started with the blue.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have purple also because Bill said that I should use it, and it's running
Okay.
just fine for 8 months now.
so maybe we should use that instead of an SSD.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're expensive.
That's
$80,
oh, that's not bad. Is that for a terabyte or 2 terabytes?
2 terabytes, but you still need the SATA interface, which is like 10
Right.
or 15.
Yeah, I've already got all the SATA interfaces, and that let's say the last thing I have not purchased yet for the Grape 2 system is 50 of the hard drives. So I'm glad I haven't done that yet. I've got pretty much everything else.
By the way, has anybody else had trouble getting the hard drive to work with the SATA USB adapter? For some reason, mine is not working. I haven't really troubleshot it yet. I don't know why.
Does it not see it, or you can't format it, or what's the problem?
Oh, it doesn't see it.
Okay, that means the format on there is not recognized by the operating system, which usually they come with a VFAT directory structure, which the Raspbian should recognize.
Well,
So I'm
that,
not-
you can run parted or Gparted on it and figure out what's on it.
Yeah, actually, if you do a DF, it'll tell you if it's plugged in, and it'll tell you if you do a DF dash or DF space dash capital T, it'll tell you what the file system is.
Or LSBLK.
Yeah, that too. But if it's, one thing you have to be careful of is depending on the Raspberry Pi, the power supply you're running, if it's a 2 amp one or whatever, you're probably going to brown the thing out because it can't handle the current surge.
I'm using an external case with a fan, and it's got
Oh,
a
okay.
power supply, so I don't have any problems with that.
Okay. Because I've seen that happen where you get the little lightning bolt up in the corner, and then if you get it really low enough, the thing resets itself. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, I have run it just for the USB port to both the Grape and to my PC.
And it doesn't see it on the PC either?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, you got a hardware problem then. Yeah, that's not an operating system related issue. That sounds like you got either a bad connection or a bad controller or something's not right.
Okay, so I've made a couple of updates while we're talking, the wired versus wireless Ethernet, the 40-pin ribbon cable I've added, and I changed the reused components to basically just be the antenna and the Pi itself now, from the other system to this one, if that's what we end up doing.
That sounds right.
There's one thing I'm looking at later today is I've got a couple of budget worksheets here, and I'm trying to figure out, that's why it's so critical for me to understand what components we need so I can make
Yep.
sense of the budgets here, so. All right, so we're happy with the diagram. We'll move on, I guess.
Well, I have a couple questions. The
Sure, Stan.
40-pin ribbon cable will support 3 amps, John? Because that's what
Yeah.
the Pi wants.
Yeah, well, there are two runs of +5 in that cable, and the cable's 6 inches long. I haven't seen a problem with it.
Okay. The other thing, wireless isn't going to work for Grape 2, is it?
No. Well, let me take that back. If we're using the standard transfer to the repo, it should work. If we're doing the digital RF, it will not.
Well, John, what about if you have a very fancy new router I mean, some of these, like Bob brought up, some of these new protocols support 400 megabits.
Yeah, well, most of the routers I've seen don't support more than 50 megabit wireless.
I know around here, the cell companies, they've got excess 5G capacity and they're pushing real hard on people to get, Verizon and AT&T to get. So those are going to come with the, I guess you call state of the art wireless systems, just because they're all brand new.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the fine print of the 5G, they say in off-peak times and high load times, you can go down to a 2G level.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of smoke
Like,
and mirrors.
what?
Agreed.
Very
Right.
true.
Right.
I think this again comes down to there's a lot of variability. I think if you write down, wired Ethernet, gigabit wired Ethernet is guaranteed to work. Your wireless systems may or may not, depending on which protocol you're using, what your RF environment is,
And the hardware.
what hardware. Yeah. So I think
Neighbors.
yeah,
A lot of people don't understand the access to the Wi-Fi channel is aloha. It's just whoever transmits first, and there's contention and back off. That is really problematic.
yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so I think I think maybe the thing to do is say, wired Ethernet was a gigabit Ethernet is guaranteed. Wireless, yeah. Wireless may work highly site and equipment dependent.
Yeah.
But it depends on your,
The little asterisk says your results will vary.
yeah. But it depends on your connection to the outside world.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter what's on your inside.
When I-
network.
When
Well,
I
it does, but
well-
depends how heavy the channels are loaded too.
when I helped build the Super Darn radar at Adak Island, that's now since been blown over, we had fiber going straight from the radar site 2 miles down to the town. So blazing fast connection there. Once it got into town, it was sent off the island via low speed satellite internet. So
By a mule, huh? With strides on its
but they
back.
were very kind to trench and install 2 miles of fiber for us between the radar site and the town. So
Oh, that's a shame.
One other thing about wireless, we've had several sites that wireless created unacceptable noise, and we don't know why. They all went to wired.
Yep. I've seen that. When I VNC into the Grape 1 running the Spectrum, as soon as you see the Spectrum start coming down, it just turns white with hash when the wireless is running. So yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, with most households, you're not going to get rid of the wireless.
Right. But it's really the
We
Raspberry
ran
Pi
into that
itself.
at our physics department at Dartmouth. They forbade us to use wireless for the longest time. But the problem with that is that everybody's computer and everybody's cell phone that walks in that building is going to be banging away anyway.
Yep. Nothing you can do to stop it. Short of a Faraday cage.
Which will be counterproductive for your.
That's what we told them they had to do.
LTE and
The
5G
researchers had a problem. Put it in a Faraday cage. But since we're RF, we don't really have that option. We just have to live with the local interference.
Yeah, it's a design problem.
Every manufacturer of a Wi-Fi thing wants to save 3 cents on the filtering on the transmitter, because that turns into millions and millions of dollars in bulk. They just have crappy filtering.
Unfortunately, you're right.
Yeah, it's
Same with-
different band, but we had a tremendous problem with interference to a 2-meter repeater from a wireless system.
Anyway, Gary, what's up next?
The hard drive with USB, I had left that off of the Grape 2 GNU radio
Okay.
image, so I
We
put
will
that back
have
in
that.
there.
It's at least a 2 terabyte hard drive with the USB controller.
Okay. So does this image work for us now that I've added that back
I'm
in?
trying to picture if there's anything missing. I'm not seeing anything missing. That should pretty much be it.
What's the wind symbol?
That's the fan and the fan,
The fan in the case for the Raspberry Pi 4.
because that's a power connection into the Pi. It's a wired connection, so I wanted
Yeah.
to show it.
We've
Gary,
got
can you put a note on there that that's a fan in case? Because
Yes,
I didn't know what that meant until you told me.
I'm not surprised. That's okay. I will
Oh,
do
that's
that.
universal. Don't you understand that, Nathaniel? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
You get
They
blown
might
away,
have-
so,
They might have good fan icons you can get too.
yeah.
maybe that's what it needs to. So, okay, I'll fix that. All right, what I'd like to do then is move on to, for my manufacturing background, just some inventory questions, okay? We've got Raspberry Pis on hand, we've got Raspberry Pis on order, and I can't keep straight who belongs, what they are, who they belong to, and what they're allocated to.
I
So
can help with that. I
it'd
have
be
in my,
nice if we had a knowledge dump right here.
for the grant, NSF grant, I've got 50 of the Raspberry Pi 4 8 gigabytes that are allocated for the Grape 2s
In your hot little hands.
in my hot little hands.
Oh my gosh, you made my morning.
Well, I haven't made your morning yet, but I've got something else I need to tell you. Anticipating that you were going to try and cut me off at the knees and borrow these things, because I'm going to need them in September. I went ahead after I asked you and you said no, and ordered 30 of the Raspberry Pi Core 4B 4 gigabytes, which I have in my hot little hands.
Okay.
So
Wait,
we
what-
have
what do you need-
those.
What do you need them for, and what do you need the 8 gigabyte ones for in September?
Those are for the Grape 2s for the integration.
Okay, because you're going to integrate them.
Yep.
So you need
I-
all you need
I
all
need
four
all-
of them?
I need all of them, yes,
Why do you need all of them?
because I'm putting systems together and I don't want to stop halfway down, because I anticipated you're going to say, oh, we can just use these temporarily, but I'm not going to get them back in time to integrate them.
I see.
That's
Yeah,
the problem. It's the timeline. It's not so much, it's just the time.
Okay, so there was something I misunderstood there, because when you were, I imagined, so are you like putting it all into one box?
They're all going to be integrated together as a system, because the way the boxes are tied in, yeah.
Okay, because you have the 40 pin. Yeah, because I imagine that people could leave the Raspberry Pi in place. We could just ship them a Grape 2.
No, because the way the case is put together, the fan is actually soldered onto the Grape motherboard, and then you have to put the ribbon cable on before you put the case together.
I see.
So it's
Okay.
all kind of like it's way more work to take them apart and reuse them, and you run the risk of breaking them.
Okay, I did not understand that. Okay, that sounds good.
So I have in my hot little hands 30 pieces of the Raspberry Pi 4B 4 gigs, brand new, screaming, Nathaniel, come get me. So,
Okay.
but we'll have to worry. I put it on my own charge account, so we'll have to work out whatever we're doing on that. But I don't have cases or power supplies for them yet.
Okay.
John, quick question. Will a 2 gigabyte Raz 4 work? I have a couple of those.
At this point, I don't know what our memory requirements are.
If you put a graphics operating system on it, no. If you put a command line only operating system on, 2 gigabytes can do a lot, but you gotta measure it.
Yeah, the problem is a 2 is going to be running it too close. Even 4 is going to be kind of close. This is why I grabbed onto the 8s, and that's why I'm going to hold them in my hot little hands till death do us part.
Hey Stan,
Yes.
you're running a digital RF version of the Grape
Yes.
One. Are you using a 4 gigabyte Raspberry Pi?
4 gigabyte, yes.
Okay, that's good. So we
And
have
running 4 grapes, it's about 10% CPU.
okay, and you aren't running out of memory.
No, but I'm
Well-
only running 10 hertz wide.
So yeah, how
But that processing has to handle it at the sample rate. I mean, the 10 hertz bandwidth is the final.
Yeah, that's just the waterfall. But
Yeah. So that's that to get that waterfall, you're not doing 10 hertz computations, you're doing a lot more. But we need, yeah. You will also need, let's see, you're gonna need the drives.
Well, this was specifically on the pies. I want to understand
Oh,
them because they're so hard to
okay.
obtain and stuff. So I just remember seeing the receipt that was Lisa Brown. I thought she had ordered some pies too. And that's why I was confused about all this stuff.
Well, she
this
ordered
grant.
them for me, so
Yeah,
And
she
they're on
ordered
your,
50.
I'm ordering through her off of this grant, so. That's why
I'm
I'll be
confu-
ordering all the parts for these other boards.
yeah,
10
I'm
or 12 or
confused though,
whatever
John.
we're
You
doing.
said they were on the CWU credit card and you'd had to transfer charges. I mean,
That's
Well,
the
some-
pretty.
That's a logistics thing we'll work out down the road. It's only 500 and, well, 30 of them is $1,600. Because they're $55 a piece.
okay, I don't, I mean, whatever you guys worked out is fine with me, obviously. I'm not, I just want to make sure we've got the numbers, the sizes and the memory and we know where they're at and what they're supposed to be used for. That's the most important thing. So is these two lines, this is it? This is our total scope of Raspberry Pis that we have, we can actually touch.
Yep. Touch in my office. Well, at home, it's in my lab at home, but yeah.
And there's nothing else on order. So this is the sum total of
I
HamSCI
can't
Raspberry Pi.
see, CWRU is a authorized vendor for raspberrypi.org. So I can go to them directly and get it at their cost, which is for the 4 gigs is $55 a piece, and for the 8 gigs is $75 a piece. But the quantity is, I usually have to order at least 50 piece minimums. Now, what happened is another person here at Case needed 20 of the Raspberry Pi 4B. So to get to 50, I added the 30, which is how I got the 30 in my hot little hands. So I do have them. I have not opened the boxes yet. The smoke's still in them.
So I guess I'm sure, so John, if understanding that, you know, you need to have the Raspberry Pis in hand to integrate them with the Grape 2s. I'm sure we can come up with $1,600 somewhere, somehow to cover that. You should also know that there is on the Case side, there is a certain amount of budget for parts that's been included in the Case budget. So
I'll be talking to Chris Lorman this afternoon about that.
Figure out how to do that. The question is, are we sure that the 4 GB is going to be sufficient for doing the digital RF for the Grape ones?
I suspect so, because I think that's what Bill Engelke is using. Isn't it a 4 gig?
Yeah,
4?
and that's what Stan just said too. It's just
Yeah.
the only thing that he said that I'm not sure about is he's doing the 10 hertz sampling right now, outputting 10 hertz.
What is the total IF band?
If we, yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. So I suspect it might work, but
I suspect it'll work just fine. Although
I'd feel more comfortable if we, you know, had it demonstrated running exactly the way we were planning on running it. But
well, there's a little caveat here that you're not acknowledging, is that Bill Engelke is not running Raspbian. He's running a regular Debian OS on the Raspberry Pi. So there probably is not a graphical interface running.
Right.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a version of Ubuntu.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Stan, does yours runs a graphical interface,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, it is. It is running a graphical interface and it's providing a waterfall display.
Yes.
So
That tells it right there. If it's doing that, you shouldn't have any trouble.
You're no trouble.
Okay.
Because that it gobbles a huge amount of memory for the graphical operating system.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That's why I'm a little hesitant to say that the 2 gig version of the 4B will work or not.
Right.
That's a TBD.
Right. Well, this is very good. I think the fact I'm really glad that you went ahead and bought those extra Raspberry Pis,
I
especially.
anticipated this.
Yeah.
This
Well,
isn't my first rodeo.
Well, as I said, I also didn't understand that you were planning on so tightly integrating the Raspberry Pis with the Grape 2s. So that was something that I didn't understand. But this makes a lot more sense now to me. So I think this is a good direction.
Okay, so this is it. This is the Raspberry Pi story from beginning to end right now.
This is the whole bunch of grapes.
Okay, All right, so hold on to your shorts now because here, here comes the action plan. We're gonna put names and what we're gonna do.
Oh, I've got to go. I'll see you later.
Yeah. I should have done this first, right? We haven't had the
John, who?
donuts yet. We gotta have the donuts first.
Donuts? Oh, I'm back.
So anyhow, I know one of the tasks is ordering. Ordering the parts for the Grape 1.12.
It's probably going to be a 1.12. Let's see, what's the acronym? For the West Northeast Grape Crunch or whatever.
Oh, NEGG.
NEGG. It's going to be a 1.12 NEGG or NNGG or yeah, Northeast Grape Bunch.
Grape Group.
Grape Group. Okay. They keep changing their name on me.
The New England Grape Group.
There we go.
Yeah, that's
New
what,
England Grape Group.
And as soon as I know how many they want, I'll pull the trigger and get them on order.
Well, it's how many you want.
I don't want any.
that should be a different number than a 1-2 if it's got no regular in it.
We can make it 1-3. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think Stan's probably right.
Okay. And is having the www.hamsci.org on the silk screen enough, or do you need a logo, Nathaniel? And if you have you want a logo, you'll need to send it to me.
That's fine.
Okay, because that's what I'm putting on now.
Yeah.
But I thought there might be some funny little logo that we had that was more representative that I could put on the silk screen.
Yeah. I think
If you find something, send it to me. If not, I'll go with what we got.
okay. I think there's more important things to worry about than that right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the $500 question is this XX, filling in the quantity that we need. The guys in New England are willing to build, and we've
Yeah,
got
with
time
the
over
hard
next-
drive purchases, I can't see that going much above 12.
I'll
those are
remind
kind
you
of-
that we did have for the Eclipse stuff, we do have the HamSCI logo with a .org after it.
We
Yeah.
do, but I don't want to spend time on that. I don't want to
Yeah,
worry
no.
about putting HamSCI.org is awesome. There's 1.5 million people that should get credit for this, and organizations and institutions. let's focus on the engineering here.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that the XX was budget limited.
It is $4,500, $4,800. I think that's what I was told.
So
Gary?
4,800 is for any non-reusable parts.
And
Okay.
we're going from Grape 1 to Grape 2, right? That's the reusable question.
Yes.
So this would be non-reusable parts, and I figured out last week, at least, and our prices change every day. It was about
Yes.
$500 for 35 sets of parts.
And I found that the 32 gig micro SD card that was being $40, I had finally found them for $7, and I had Salisa order them because there was a special, and I got all 50 of them for $7 instead of $40 a piece.
Wow.
So, yeah. When you see that, something like that with the present condition of supply chain issues, you jump.
I hope they're not counterfeit.
Nope.
So this is what was discussed in some emails last week. The guys in New England, I realize this number is new to you, this 35. We had talked about 20 earlier, and that was just a discussion point. So
35,
You got-
wow.
well, if you got 35 sets of parts and you build 30 Grape 1.12,
Got it.
you need more parts than you're going to build. So
Okay.
That's when we had no idea how many we were gonna build. That's,
right. That's probably one thing we've got to answer before we leave the call today. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
but
ordering 15 versus 35 is a big difference.
before this action item, there should be something about making up a parts list and just exactly what does parts include.
It's on the website already.
well, yeah,
Does that include all the cables and connectors.
So this, yeah,
It
George
did.
is right. I mean, we've got a couple of building materials, one for the circuit board and one for
Yeah,
the
and then you have
entire
the
system.
system
So,
parts list.
Yeah, this is for the system kit.
yeah, now that we've got
I
this picture, I think we can do that.
I can tell you that there is, I have a copy of the case budget. I can tell you that there is potentially some additional resources that could be applied to this. It'd have to be cleared with Chris Zorman, but there
Okay.
is a line item. There's $4,000 for year one for consumables and research supplies that include the purchase of and or rental of hardware, including electronics components, SDR modules, antennas, circuit boards, mechanical enclosures, and software.
That
So,
was year one, because I pretty much wiped that out.
but you,
Or is this a new grant?
this is the new CEDAR grant.
Oh, okay. In which case should be good.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So,
Okay.
you know, we have to talk to Chris Zorman to make sure we can use that, because I can't just say you can use it. But that
I'll be
is
talking to him today at 2:00. So
okay. So what I'm saying is so you have the original budget I gave you for building the Grape 2s that you've been ordering from Salisa. I have in my budget, I have an additional $4,800 I can give you that could be used towards doing the Grape 1 deployment. And it looks like Case has an additional maybe $4,000 that could be used potentially.
okay.
But again, we'd have to discuss this with Chris. So I'm looking, some things, so you spent $1,600. So you bought those, so right now you've already bought 30 Raspberry Pis, right, John?
Correct.
And that came to $1,600.
Yeah, they're 55 a piece, so whatever that works out, 1,600 some change.
Yeah, $1,650.
Sounds
And
right.
so plus another 500 for the parts for building 35 Grape 1s, right? So that comes to 2,150. So we haven't, so that leaves, 4,800 minus 2,150. So then the other non-reusable thing that we need are the Bodner GPS DOs, right?
Correct.
So
About 160 a piece.
does that include shipping?
No,
Well, it did for me. I just looked at my credit card statement from April and it was $158 plus $4 of international transaction fees.
We should estimate $200 per unit for those. Now,
That's fair.
For people who are already running the Grape 2s, I'm sorry, who are already running Grape 1s, if they run a dual system the way you said, we probably, they don't need to buy another Bodner GPS DO.
right. The way the input to the mixer is set up, it pulls about 7 milliamps of current from the 3.3 volt square wave. The Leo Bodnar can be programmed to go 816 or 32 mil, so that's not a problem. As long as the Y cable you have coming out of the Bodnar is identical in length to both of the receivers, you're good. But that's critical. You need to have that be the same length so that the reflections don't start mixing weirdly with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing that I think Bill had mentioned is they made a 5351 board that was driving multiple grapes. That is a problem because the output current from a 5351 can only handle 5.3 mils max. Now I can give them the 2 new resistor values to change that so it'll work, but if they're using 5351s to drive a grape directly, they're overloading the 5351.
Oh, wait a minute, you lost me. In what
But
case?
that's not related to this, and that's
okay.
just a note for Bill.
Okay, never mind.
That's for the Northeast Grape Group.
Yeah.
It's close, but it's not quite right. So, but it's an easy fix to make it work.
So I think we've got enough information to make a decision on ordering the components and for the 1.13s. I think I need to continue working on it and then talk to the science community about the locations for the Grape ones. Some are existing, some are new, and so on and so forth. And that's based on the responses we've gotten from the website.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure what this number is yet here.
I think that number is going to be the number that's really limited. And I think that's going to be the limiting factor here because those are expensive,
Yep.
somewhere between $175 to $200 a piece. Plus,
Yeah, because 10 of them, you're at $1,700. That pretty much eats up a lot of what you had left. And you haven't even bought the hard drives yet. And those are about $100 a pop. And the interface form is about $15 a pop.
but now the hard drives, are you integrating those directly into the Grape 2 system as well, or are they going to sit on the side?
They plug into it. I have not bought them yet.
But I mean, can we ship hard drives out to these Grape 1 people anticipating that we can reuse the same hard drive for the Grape 2? Or are you going to need the hard drives for integration?
Actually, we have to format them with a name and a different file format system. So it's something that has to be, it would be some work.
Yeah, but can you think about that, or can we have a procedure for because it would be really good if we can reuse those.
My concern is, especially if it's a spinning drive,
Yeah.
shipping them is problematic.
Well, I mean, can you?
It can be done, but yeah.
Why can't they reformat them on their end?
Oh, they can. It's just shipping back and forth. I'm get really nervous about bouncing a drive like that around in a
No, we ship it to them once at the beginning, and then they get it all set up and running for October. And then whenever the Grape 2 system is ready, they get a new box shipped to them, and they're not expected to return anything to us.
Okay.
They simply take
So
the
that assumption is that these new grapes are all going to be hosting Grape 2s. Is that correct, Gary?
yes.
That's the goal. Yep, that's what I'm working towards.
Okay. That I did not know.
Yeah, the idea here is that anything and this is why with the Raspberry Pis, I was anticipating that basically they already have the Raspberry Pi, they have the hard drive, they just have a new Grape box that they plug in. So we don't have to buy new Raspberry Pis.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the setup, that's not a direct plug and play.
Yeah. So which makes sense, but if we can with the hard drives, if we can save $100 a person, so I would think about that. Or another, I mean, if we're looking at 100, that's a $3,000. Another possibility is that, we could look at the budget again and see if there's a way to, find another way to do the 3,000, find another 3,000 if you want to have it that tightly integrated. But
yeah, because there's some things going on that I'm going to be working with Kung on that Bill and I have been talking about. That, I mean, it could be done. It's going to be more work for Kung and Bill and I to have to wrap that around and not have that plug and play.
Yeah, exactly.
I
mean, we'd have to write an installer.
Yeah.
And especially if digital RF is running on Ubuntu instead of Raspberry.
Yeah, and the file system we want to use, it's got issues.
I mean, it's doable. It's just going to take more.
It's going to make more work for us and delay us a little more to have to prepare all that. So,
well,
at some point in time, can I give a Grape 2 update?
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready for that, let me know.
Well, if we can answer, if we want to order
Let's
parts,
finish this first.
Yeah, if we want to order parts, this is, I think, our big question before we move on to anything else. The rest of the stuff can wait.
I don't think we can order 35 Leo Bodnars.
No. So I got
on the other hand, how many Leo Bodnars are already out there?
Right. That's a question I've got to answer. I've got to look at the site and see how many are existing. So
I have one. I know Veronica has one. I know. So there's a number out there already. So that may not be. We may be able to keep that number lower.
I have,
Hard
I have
drive.
two.
Yeah, so a lot of the existing sites already have them. So any site we reuse or upgrade, they'll already have one. So thankfully.
Anybody know how many Bodner has in stock?
Yeah, might have to
Yeah.
warn him about this.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. Maybe you can get in contact with him.
Last time I ordered 25 from him, he didn't gulp too much, but it took him a day or two to get it all together. So, but ordering more than that may be problematic. I don't know what his supply chain issues are. I mean, he uses a U-Blocks in there for his discipline oscillator, so. I suspect that's probably his problematic part, and those have become available, at least the one I was looking at, so.
A number of hams have the Leo Bodnars for working with things like the ICOM 9700.
Right, but they've got a dedicated to this, Joe.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
a
but
big ask too.
but it could possibly be dedicated for a period of time.
Well, it would have to be permanent because we want this to be running 24/7.
Oh, okay.
So
For
that
years.
probably is not a solution.
But you could also ask the candidate people who are interested in this if they already have a Bodnar that they're willing to dedicate to the project.
Right.
And that might be something, that might be a reason we would send the system to one person over another.
Right.
And then additionally, in addition to them having that resource, if you have a ham that's like, oh, I have an extra Bodnar in my, I've got like 3 of these things. Yeah, like George over there, he's got an extra one. Well, that probably tells you something about that ham also, because anyone who has a few extra Bodnars in their drawer, might be a little more technical than someone who doesn't.
Or
I
have a
have
few more
five.
or have a few more dollars at hand.
That's true too.
Gary, going back. The first drawing was an assumption of 2 systems running on the same frequency, I think. Is that what we're talking about here? Or are we talking
That is correct.
the ones you're shipping out? You're talking about shipping out the stool system? Or are you talking
Well,
about
no.
one?
It's a single system, a regular Grape one
So Stan,
architecture.
there'll be 2 circumstances. Some people don't have anything. So we're
Right,
just gonna send them a single Raspberry Pi
Okay.
and we're gonna get DRF.
all right,
The people already have one like you, we'll ask them to put a second one up.
okay,
And the whole point of doing this isn't for frequency diversity, but it's because Christina really wants to keep the FL Digi. She made a request that the current FL Digi format be kept until we can prove that we
Oh,
have
yeah.
the right software.
I
Yeah.
was just assuming there were 2 isolated systems. Mine are
If-
2 isolated systems, but
Yeah.
Which is fine as
Independent.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
if that's fine as well.
okay. Move on.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask this question again. We want to go ahead and make this investment and get DigiKey going and
I would
I have-
suggest maybe 20. Because we're never going to get even close to 35. I mean,
How
with the
about-
budget we had originally was going to be 12.
How about 25?
yeah, because we've got the CDR grant to cover. We've got locations that we promised we would.
Okay.
So if we order 25 sets of parts and we ask the New England folks to successfully build 20, is that reasonable? I think so.
If you look at the
6
Cedar
last
grant-
week.
If you look at the Cedar grant, we said that we would, I think we said we'd deploy 25 of these things across the US and we'd have like 5 engineering units. So
So I mean, obviously, there's a certain number of us in the HamSCI community already that that'll come out, add to that number. So, but so this will be a little tight, but it's also reasonable. So. So do we want to give John the okay to order these parts and just, and keep them at CWRU for the moment, or do we want to ship them to somebody up in New England?
Well, probably for the way the system is set up now, shipping to me makes more sense because Salisa doesn't have to jump through hoops. And then I could hand off the whole box of everything as one piece to probably Gary or whatever. Actually, I can FedEx it pretty cheap here. In my
It would go to New England. I mean, these are the circuit board components that
right.
Dan and Bill and the rest of the guys are going to build. So
I got Bill Bacco's address, so I know how to get him to New England.
that makes sense because
A reliable
kind of our
recipient.
warehouse.
Yeah, he's a reliable recipient.
So far.
I'll keep an eye out on your eBay posting.
Okay.
Okay, if that, we can put the hammer down on that, we're ready to go to the Grape 2 update.
I think the developing the system part list is important, but you have an agenda of your own, so follow it.
No, it's, I think you're right about that, Bill. So I've got the picture at the front, so let me work to that picture. There's a couple different options for the person that's only gonna have one, for the people who are gonna have two, and since I've got the picture, let me do that. So I'll put my name
Ultimately,
on that.
this comes down to the final cost of all the parts together. Do we have a fixed target yet? Is it still 4,800 or is that mushy? Guess that's a question for Nathaniel.
What was the question again?
Yes, sorry about that. What's that?
Is the target that we can spend fixed yet, or is it still getting kind of mushy? Is it 4,800? Is it more than that?
So from the Scranton budget, I can give you an additional $4,800 in addition to what I already committed for the original Grape 2 build.
Okay, because I consider that 4,800 independent of what I've got.
It's independent of, so I gave you a number
Right.
for building for building the Grape 2s. I said this is what you can spend with from Salisa. So what I'm saying is on top of that, you can spend an additional $4,800.
Okay.
And that the purpose of that additional $4,800 is to
Get
do
this thing going.
Grape 1 deployment. Yeah.
Okay.
If you need money beyond that, I know that Chris
I'll talk to Zorman.
but we have certain latitude to move things between budget categories. So like he may decide, like he may have other ideas for that money, like maybe getting Rachel Bodeker a computer, or he may want to use it for helping support her conference travel or something. So that's why I can't just say, oh, we're going to use it for that. You need to talk to him and explain what you're doing and make sure that he's good with how those resources are being allocated.
Okay.
So a couple of things on my plate is to work on the system parts list, and I think I need to make that spreadsheet I've got of the 174 potential sites something that's easily digestible, so I can send that off to Nathaniel and you, whomever. We can kind of click these off and say these are good, these are not so good, and then go back to those people and get agreement from them. So
Yeah, we got some homework to do. I think initially for Gary, just having the overall system parts list would be a big help, because that's going to give us sort of a bullseye of where we are price wise in terms of per system cost to pull this off.
okay.
Parts list auto include documentation, construction manual, perhaps. There you go.
I don't see antennas on here either.
Antennas. Should that be part of the parts list? The system parts list?
I think it should.
And the guy who was volunteering to do the antenna work isn't on the call here today.
Yeah, Bob's not here.
He's driving down to North Carolina
Okay.
to install a Grape.
Yeah, I'll mention that more should be revealed on antennas. I've got a couple of preamps to try coming along with the RX 888. And I expect we'll get together at some point and
Oh, and I did look
up
for
with
that
the
board,
options.
David, and I didn't have one, so. For the
Okay,
mag,
I'll just stick a couple names on there just so that they're not anonymous.
Yeah, you can put Bob and I on that one.
Okay. Good, I'm gonna close this file, and you wanna do your Grape 2 update, John?
yeah, I think I've finally reached the point where it's time to shoot the engineer. We've demonstrated, or Bill has demonstrated the ability to capture an 8 kilohertz 3 wide 16-bit data stream in live and capture it to a file. So I've made a lot of the updates to the 2 boards, and I'm in contact right now with a board manufacturer in Middlefield, Ohio, which I'm going to be going out there next week to talk with them and put the ball rolling on getting both of these Grape boards made. They're quite excited about it. There's also some other stuff going on with Case that he's interested in getting involved with, so that's be to our advantage. But anyway, board builds will hopefully commence sometime in the next couple of weeks. So we've got all the parts, and I just have to pull the trigger on the final board layout. We're working out what he needs for fiducials for the actual board assembly for the machine vision. So that's the last thing I have to figure out, and that's what we're going to meet out and talk about. So that's in good shape. So we should be building boards, and then I'll be getting them in and having to start testing. And Bill is working feverishly to get things working. He's making excellent progress, but we still have a ways to go. And I still need to get a system to Kuhn for his development work, which will happen next week.
John, just to when you say the 8 kilohertz sample rate, that's 8 kilohertz regular samples, real samples, not 8 kilohertz IQ, correct?
It's 8 kilohertz real samples, 16-bit depth, 3 channels.
Okay, thank you.
And once we get that whole system working, one of my tasks is to push this thing to see where it breaks. Because we know we can do 8, and maybe we could do 16, I don't know. The timing I saw in the diagrams I've seen so far indicates we might be able to pull it off, but maybe not. But the hardware,
16 what?
kilohertz sampling instead of 8.
Why do we need 16?
Well, you said you wanted IQ.
Well,
I can give you the equivalent of IQ at 60. We don't need it. This is just a benchmark to see where we're at, where we can push the system.
we don't have to.
No, we don't have to do that. This is just seeing where we're at. With the new architecture, it's nice to know where we break things. Is it at 8.2 kilohertz? Is it at 16? Is it at 25? That's really what I'm determining. It's a system throughput issue.
But we could run it lower if we needed to, right?
Oh yeah, slower is not a problem.
Yeah.
And then all right, so just tell me, I'm sorry, there are a few things happening over here. What's the timeline again for the boards for ordering the boards?
Actually, ordering the raw PC boards is going to happen in the next week. Then I have to take it down to the manufacturing place and work with them on getting the boards built and processed. That's probably a 2 to 3 week process.
Okay.
Depending on what their loading is on the production line and what they need. Fortunately for us, I have all the active parts because right now there are some you cannot get. So we're in good shape in that respect. One of the things they're going to be getting are passives, which are resistors and caps, which are easy to come by. If things work out well, I'm going to hopefully be starting testing of boards sometime in August.
Okay.
Now, are you gonna make these 1.13 with no regulator?
Correct.
Is that wise?
I can leave the regulator on, just do 1.12. It's
I think.
because I've got a new alternate regulator that I'm going to put in the parts list. That's the TI one. that they have 5,000 in stock right now.
Mhm.
And if you run 5 volts into it, it's going to run in saturation, but it'll work just fine. You just won't get the noise rejection through it.
Hmm.
And that would make it more universal if you wanted to run it off 12 volts. And there
That's
would
what
be
I
another
wanna do.
floating around. So it's,
There's a lot of 12 volts.
yeah.
12 volts floating around.
So I guess I need some input on that. Do you want me to do that without the regulator, or just leave it on there and we'll short it out, or just run it the way it is and just leave it alone?
I think, John, leaving the regulator on, if it'll work in saturation, is a good way to go, because you're not going to get the noise reduction anyway when you
Right.
short cross it.
Well, I was going to throw an inductor in there to put a little T filter or pi filter in
Right,
there.
well,
but
that's fine, but I'm just saying that if you leave that regulator there, you don't have to switch it. It gives
Yeah.
people that option.
that way you
You
can
don't
run it
have to
off.
redesign the board.
Yeah, that way you can run it anywhere from 5.3 volts to 17 volts input.
Right.
18, yeah. And you don't have to redesign or relay out the board.
Yep, but that's.
So I think I'm hearing 2 to 3 weeks before we get these Grape 1.12s. Or before they'd be available.
Yeah, 2-week lead time. If I push it, I can get this is a 2-layer board, so I can definitely push it for, yeah, 2 weeks is probably the earliest you're going to see it.
Okay,
And the parts will be, that should be all stock at DigiKey. So I suspect I should be able to get that in by end of next week if I get my button gear and get that ordered.
I did
Yeah, I
a
didn't have any,
DigiKey order for 1.11 parts. And some of them are not available and they suggest alternatively, I think it's the IC.
SA612.
I'm sorry?
The SA612 I've got supplies of, so that's not a problem.
Okay, no, it was the amplifier and the regulator.
John,
Yeah.
if I need a 612 to repair Red's board, could I get one from you, or should I
You
order?
certainly can.
Thank you.
Oh, the LEDs were not available either.
That thing is
I didn't see
bright.
that last Thursday. Okay.
I did fix the brightness
Parts
problem.
has 612s, buck a piece.
Who does?
Kits and parts.
Kits and parts, right?
I did fix the brightness problem on the LED because I was getting beat up by David. His ocular agony was overcoming him, so I fixed it.
I
What
put
did
mine
you
in a
fix? I'm
metal
sorry.
box.
What did you fix, John? I'm sorry.
The brightness of the green LED or the blue LED.
Excellent. I was going to do that myself.
John, on
I've
the
got-
on the case for the grapes, for the pies.
Mhm.
If it doesn't matter, I'd consider a non-fanned metal case in price.
With proper heat sinking.
Oh, for these ones.
It's
particularly.
quieter.
It's quieter,
and it
yeah.
won't fail, but
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from on that. That makes
The-
sense.
The case does heat sink the processor.
Yeah, it does. As well as the Ethernet controller, and I'm not sure if it does the memory chip as well.
depends on the case. The
Yeah.
FLIRT one only does the processor, I think.
If we're using hardwired Ethernet, then we don't have to worry about wireless getting through a metal box.
It gets through, it's not that tight.
Yeah, and the antenna's right on the edge of the board.
Yep.
In the upper right corner.
It can be turned off.
Yes, it can. And now that's where we're going to be. That's one of the turnkey things we'll probably be doing is shutting that off along with the Bluetooth.
Make it an option so I can leave it on.
It's all operating system stuff. So yeah, you can tweak it any way you want.
Oh, okay.
It's not something we're doing that's special. It's just how we're shipping systems out. But again, that's a TBD and that's down the road a ways. We have a lot of other hurdles
Oh,
to
yeah.
jump before I'm worrying about that. I mean, I've got test fixtures I got to think about. I got assembly fixtures I got to make for the manufacturer, assembly processes. I got a lot of work.
Anything else,
Okay.
Gary?
Not for me.
Just interjection here. I have a dozen or more pies using a $12 solid metal case. That passive, it works wonderfully well.
Can you send me the link for that?
I'll post it up in the chat window right now. It's on Amazon. It's there.
Is it the Flirk one?
There. It's Armor, I think, is the brand.
I don't know what that means.
Armor case. There's a version available for the Pi 3 as well, although it's, I think, considerably more expensive. Strange.
That's a directory listing, Kiwi. Oh. /home/whisper Damon.
Yeah, that looks more like a config file, Rob.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought I'd copied
Yeah, the wrong thing in the paste buffer.
In the buffer, yeah.
Let me try again.
He's
I'm
been
sorry.
bufferitis.
Let's see,
That's my trick.
there goes Amazon. I'm
There we
sorry.
go.
That's it.
I had a lurking.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see it.
That's nice. Look at that.
I mean, I've got some people using it for other purposes, and it's keeps things cooler, 15 to 20 degrees C cooler than a fan base.
Okay, so it's doing the CPU,
like
the
that.
RAM, and the USB control. So yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, you get access to everything. It doesn't impede you at all. Even you can.
But
even
I'm
put-
saying the heatsink touches the three parts.
Oh yes, of
It's
course.
not just the CPU. So I like that.
No. They have you have a little
Little thermal
thermal
pads
tape that you put in. It is important. I think it's mentioned in the in some of the discussions on Amazon that there are slight differences among Pi 4s in terms of the chip height. So it's important. I think that the first thing to do is to put the thermal tape on the Ethernet controller. I guess there's a couple of small chips. And put the case together and make sure that look inside and make sure that you're getting a good solid connection between those chips and the metal. And if you need, if it's not, then you might need an extra layer or a thicker piece of thermal tape
right.
to maintain contacts.
That's good to know.
Truth is, I never checked that, and so I didn't learn about that until one of my calls yesterday. One of my contributors mentioned that you should check the make sure that there are slight, because of those slight variations in chips on the Pi 4s. It's
Yeah, the CPU chip is probably the big one.
yeah, the CPU is pretty constant. It doesn't its height doesn't vary, but these other two chips, apparently there are some batches that are slightly, they have a slightly
Yeah, a
different.
little thinner package. I can see that.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I've kind of given up the use of the Pi 4. It's so ridiculously expensive for what, you know, for its performance. But it's I know for a project like yours, it's, you know, you're pretty far into it. I have had most of my Worcester Daemon users are moving over to, well, either Think Centers, which you can get for less than the Pi 4s these days.
How much are the Think Centers going for?
I've just bought a Think Center refurbished 1-year guarantee on eBay for $99. It's 8 gigabytes an i5. It's 10 times the CPU power of a Pi,
Yeah.
and it'll be here tomorrow. So it's you can find them on eBay. That's if specifically you want to get one of the later generations. The
Yeah.
i5 6500 is a good one.
But for
And
getting
that's-
50 units of that, that would be problematic for our project. So
It might not be actually. These are professional refurbishers, and they appear to have a large stock of these things. I think they pull them off of the monitors in doctors' examination rooms and upgrade them, and so they get a really large batch of them. But yeah, you're right. It's well, getting a large batch of Pi 4s, I think, would be hard these days too. So it's
like I say, I have the link to them directly, and that's wasn't an issue for us, fortunately.
okay. Well, good. But for
Oh.
for one-offs for us,
Yeah,
most
that makes
people,
sense. I agree. That makes
it's-
sense.
it's gotten hard.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, we're at almost 11:30. Nathaniel's got has an antenna party waiting to get started over there. So
And
You
just
want
a
anything
heads
else?
up, Yeah, just a heads up. I will be here next week, but the week after, I'm going to be traveling to a conference in Switzerland. So yes, so it's gonna be super exciting. I'll be talking about traveling atmospheric disturbances there for the week. But yeah, so next week I'll be here. The week after I'll be on travel, and then I should be here for the rest of the summer. So
Well, you're making the most of your summer. That's great.
I
Yeah.
sure am. So thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, a lot of good input today from everybody.
Yeah, my head's still spinning, so it's a good meeting.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a great one.
Bye.
7-3.
73.
73.